Did anyone sign up for the Paris trip?
Have you?
I'm looking at it right now and
I've
I'm
been to
kind of
Paris.
confused by
I've
it.
been there 4 times.
He's like, I've been there 4 times. I'm not even gonna sign
I
up.
worked for Air France,
Oh,
and they sent me first class years ago.
nice.
I mean, there's nothing left to see. They showed me everything.
Well, the reason why, excuse me, the reason why I'm asking is because there's three different selections. One's individual agent, one is a team registration, and one is additional team member. So I don't know how that works. Hmm. Okay,
Mhm.
I guess I'll find out. I'll ask Rob. I wasn't on that call. Maybe
Well,
he explained it on the video.
most of the people from our office in Dallas are teams that are joining up. And I
Because they're
think,
all joining up at the same time and they're splitting the cost or?
well, the team members, the one team I know for sure is splitting the cost. I don't know if they have to pay individually or not. That's a good question, and maybe Rob can answer that for us today.
Yeah, well, we kind of have a little team, but it's like an unofficial team because we were trying to sign up for some sort of special monthly billing for your monthly fee. And if you join this fictitious Remax team, it wasn't like we were really a team. We were still working individually, but as far as Remax knows, we have a little six-person team.
Good morning.
Okay,
Hey,
well,
everybody.
you can ask Rob. There he is.
Yep. Oh, hey, Rob. Where are you?
Hey,
Somewhere in the mix.
good. Who's that speaking?
Jennifer Raby from the
Oh,
Villages.
Jennifer, how are you?
Good morning. How are you? Did you have a good
I'm
Christmas?
great. You did. How about
Good.
you?
I had a wonderful one. Yes, it was nice. So I was asking everyone, when you sign up for the Paris, um, there's three different ways to sign up: individual agent registration, team registration, and an additional team member. We have like kind of like this little team in our office, but it's not really a team, so to speak. It's just through Remax's eyes, it's a team. So does that mean
So,
like if I would sign up as a team registration, we all sign up under that?
so I would say in that circumstance, you're probably better off just doing the individual, as opposed to a team because it would affect the way we do the masterminding and whatnot.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So,
So
so I'll
if
give
it's a
her,
team, then they have like, that's the numbers from everyone. Okay. Got it.
yep.
Okay.
So I'll give
That makes
everybody a
sense.
minute to come on. Anybody have any insightful questions before we get the show started for today? Not all at
Great
once.
to see
This
everyone.
is Howard. Tricia and Matt and Wilson would love to see some referrals coming from the very cold, very snowy Northeast. I'm sorry to see all the snow that's coming to you guys this weekend, but one solution is leave.
Yes.
Buy a winter home in Arizona. Come work for
Good
us out
idea.
Come to Florida.
Or Florida, right? I was just gonna say Lisa, Florida.
And Howard, give them the news flash that the rain for the next 12 months is completed. We had it all when we visited.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's 340 days of sunshine in Arizona, and you picked 5 when it wasn't. Good job.
Well, thanks for sharing that.
So Rob,
Before we
I
get
wanted to share one thing if you don't mind.
absolutely.
So back when I was first starting in real estate, I had a manager who, became a really a great friend to me as well. And at the last office meeting in December, he had noticed that many of the agents in the office had kind of shut down their business for the last 2 weeks of the year while they were, I guess, vacationing with their families or just kind of resting. And he said something that has always stuck in my mind. And I think I probably share it on these masterminds every year at this time. But he said, Christmas is a 1 day holiday. It's Christmas Day, and then it's back to work. Because if you're not working now, you're not getting paid in February and March, and you lose your momentum. So just wanted to share that thought with you.
Thanks for sharing that. Robert, I'm kind of a little bit torn on the harshness of that, but I also want to point out that we have like if you look at the opportunity that you have to help a lot of people, and there are a lot of people that have time off now, right? And they might be able to come in and have a conversation with you, and you might be able to change some lives. And this whole perspective about the Keys at 33 Paris Challenge is about changing lives. It's not about making money, because there are lots of ways that we can make more money. To be honest with you, today is about a way to feel better about the job that you do, to emulate what others do, and to make more money. But in reality, what you're saying, Robert, is that the world doesn't end for the entire second half of December, right? Because if you look back to your management days, Robert, there would be people that would be, oh my God, I'm preparing for Christmas starting like right after we have our triple play event the first week in December. And they concede the entire month of December. And then in January and February, they're all panicked, right? Because, oh my God, I have no business. And it's entirely predictable. Okay. And it's a choice that you make. You can buy into, hey, the holiday season is the entire month of December, and then you have the January hangover. Or you can say, it's a day or two, and then you can work around that. Okay. So it's a choice. It's a choice that you make. And I just want everybody to do what's right for yourself. And for me, the North Star, the guiding light is, if there are people that want to be helped, is your brand closed for business now, or are you responding to the needs of your consumer, the needs of your potential buyers, right?
So, Rob,
And I think
the follow-up to the story is that I get a call from a client on New Year's Eve, and he says that he wants to make an offer on a house that we had looked at a couple of times, and he wants the offer to be made on New Year's Eve. Well, it turns out that the homeowner had a huge New Year's party planned and said, no, we couldn't come and present an offer. They were too busy, but if I wanted to come to their house at 10 o'clock New Year's Day, we could certainly talk about it. So I went there at 10 o'clock New Year's Day with the blessing of my client and negotiated a deal for a $2 million house on New Year's morning at 10 o'clock. So if my brand had been closed for the second half of the month, that might not have happened.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And before I get into today's topic, what motivates me, what motivates people like Cindy Reddy and Kathy for donating their time to help the industry is, a passion to help people and to make a difference, right? And I think that's what, is, inspiring me to consistently try to deliver inspiration and content so that, I can make a difference and change lives, not just everybody on this call, but everybody that you get into contact with, right? So if, half of us, if we get 100 people to sign up for the challenge, and half of those 100 people add 8 additional buyer sides, that's 800 families that we've changed the lives of. Okay. And the whole point of this challenge is not to take business away from our competition, but it's to create new opportunities. Okay. I'm going to repeat that. It's not to, spend more money on Zillow to get more buyers, right? Because those people presumably are already going to be in the market to buy, and they're probably going to buy from somebody. And if we don't call them back quick enough, it might not be us. If we don't have the best follow-up skills, it definitely won't be us. But my motivation here is to introduce home ownership and to change the trajectory of their financial life, to change the trajectory of their personal life by introducing them to the possibility of home ownership. And, pardon my directness, but I'm sick and tired of hearing that this generation can't afford to buy houses because homes are too expensive, right? I reject that. Okay, there are some that may not be able to, but did you ever see somebody who's determined? You can't stop them, right? If they want to do something, you cannot stop them. Is there anybody on this call that bought a house back when interest rates were over 12%? Raise your hand if you did. How about over 15%? Anybody buy? So we have people that bought houses when interest rates were over 15%. That, my friends, is crazy. Like, who pays? That's like a credit card interest rate. Okay, we now have interest rates that are in the sixes. They're historically very affordable. Okay, a lot of our younger generation are making good money. They just don't have the education. Nobody's taken the time to sit them down and share with them all the attributes of buying a home. Okay, and people like Cindy Reddy, Robert Garber, Howard, Kathy. We remember when it was the first-time buyer that started the whole process, right? The first-time buyer comes in, forces somebody to trade up, Okay, that first-time home buyer is being abandoned by our industry. Okay, now immediate past presidents here, you still have influence. We need to reject the fact that the youth are victims of student loans and higher prices, and make a difference. Because I found that when you give somebody the opportunity, you provide them with the information. If they want to make a change, they can find a way to do it. And I'm even going to put Howard on the spot. And this is not something that is the point of today's topic, but Howard also is very passionate about the transfer of wealth, right? And Howard, you want to take like a minute to explain what you're talking about? And I'm not saying that kids grovel to their parents and grandparents, but I'm saying that, maybe if they're educated and their parents and grandparents who are sitting on a lot of wealth in their home, wealth in the securities that they have. Howard, your show for a minute.
Well, thank you. No, you and I have talked about this quite a few times, and I'll preface it saying that one of the things Rob is really passionate about is making sure that you're staying in contact with your past clients. Well, what do you talk to them about? I mean, you run out of content that's meaningful when you're trying to engage your past clients. But one of the things that's happening in America right now is they're projecting an $82 trillion transfer of wealth from the older generation to our kids and grandkids. That's an incredible amount of money. And the neighbor next door, the millionaire next door, that is your past client, is going through at this time of year, literally at this time of year, from Christmas until the end of the year, they're going through gymnastics of estate planning and wills and trusts, etc. I can tell you from experience, it costs a lot of money to engage financial advisors in terms of what are you going to do with the money that you have? It may be $1 million, it might be $100 million, but what are you going to do with that when you die? And the biggest question is, will you ever see the passion? Will you ever see the joy of the people that you're giving this money to, that you've lived for you worked for a lifetime saving up so you can die and give it to somebody. And then you're worried about tax consequences and all kinds of things. So my my thoughts are that if you're engaging in a conversation with anybody plus 50, ask them, do they have kids? Do they have grandkids? And if they do, have you ever thought of helping them purchase their first home? Because, and I'll tell you, the knee-jerk reaction is, I'm not going to buy my kid a house. I'm not going to spend $500,000 to give them a house. Let them earn it. The reality is that of all the lending programs that exist out there, it's relatively easy to get into a home for virtually nothing. You all know that. FHA has a 3.5% down program. You know what 3.5% is on $500,000? It's $18,000. It's nothing. It's nothing. And to engage a conversation with a parent or grandparent and say, if you could ever envision seeing the joy on your children or your grandchildren's face when they move into their first home, it'll far surpass anything you could possibly do for them in the transfer of wealth when you die, because you will never see what happens to that money once it goes away. So this year, the IRS allows for a husband and wife to transfer tax-free to a friend, a relative, a grandson, a granddaughter, a child, tax-free, $38,000. $38,000. What did I just say the down payment was on a $500,000 home? $18,000. There may be some closing costs, 20 grand. It's not even as much as you're allowed to transfer. And to see the joy on the kid's face when they're moving in their first home, and to have the aid of a parent or a grandparent is something that is absolutely priceless. And now you've got a conversation point for anybody plus 50. And how you engage in that conversation, you got to be somewhat careful, because you're not tax advisors. You're passion advisors. You're purveyors of goodwill. You're dream merchants. But if you paint the picture of what I just said in terms of envision the joy of the kid's face when they move into a home that they didn't think they'd be able to buy. By the way, Rob and I we concurred that the average age of a first-time home buyer is now plus 40 years old. When Rob and I got out of college, we were buying our first home when we were 20 and 21 years old. Brian Buffini said, I saw him talk last week, and he said the home buyer today has 42 times as much wealth as the home renter. 42 times as much wealth. So if you've got a parent or grandparent that you're trying to engage in with as a past client, now you've got a nugget that you could share with them. And how you couch it, every person is individual, but give it a try. What's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen? They shut down your idea, but the problem is still there and the opportunity is still there. That's all I got.
And Howard, I think that in 2026, the exemption is scheduled to increase to $15 million per parent or grandparent to a child. That's tax exempt. It's a lifetime gifting exemption. Now, talk to your tax advisor. And I think if you donate over that $38,000, Howard, you just need to file a gift tax return.
You do.
And I'm not a tax advisor, but I've been doing a lot of research on this because I just want people to have information. And Howard, if you call somebody and you say, hey, do you ever think of gifting, because they can sense your motivation to make a sale, it won't work. But if you're calling because you're really passionate about making sure that, the elderly generation, the generation that's going to be transferring this wealth has the opportunity to make the decision, and you're not like, hey, here I am trying to make a sale, right? People can sense that. And I don't know how, but people will sense if you're calling just to make a sale, or if you're calling just because you want to make sure that they're aware of what their options are, right? That really does make a difference. And for any of us, if you ever needed to have a sale closed to pay a bill, doesn't it seem to elude you at times, right? Oh my, I need this one to happen. Marilyn, how many times you see, I need this sale to happen, and all of a sudden, for this, that, and the other reason, it just falls apart, right? But if you're building up a steady flow and you're doing everything for the right reason, everything just falls into place. But if you absolutely need that sale, it never happens. I don't know how that happens, but it just seems to be, when you desperately need a sale, it falls into the next year, so you don't make the club you want. It challenges you for payment, so you need to do a commission advance. And these are all predictable things that, if you had four going on, if one fell apart, it doesn't make a difference. And if, to your point, Howard, you had 20 conversations, and if 10 people are engaged in it, or 2 people are engaged, or all 20 are engaged, it doesn't really matter. It just matters that you have the conversation and you make them aware of what options that they do have. Okay. So, powerful stuff, Howard. And I really think that a lot of people don't think about it until it's too late, that they could have had that impact. And it's probably not even a significant part of their estates that they would need to donate to help a child or grandchild buy their first house, right?
As a proportion of most estates, it's almost nothing. It's a nothing expense.
And Howard, didn't you even have a conversation with somebody about maybe instead of doing $100,000 wedding, do a $60,000 wedding and take that extra money and put it to your down payment? Was that you?
It was me. It was me. Tyler's sister, my daughter, approached me over a year ago. She wanted to get married, and she asked me, "Well, Dad, how much money do you plan to give us for our wedding?" I said, "Well, how much do they cost?" And she said, "Well, we've really cut back. I think it'll only be $20,000 to $50,000." I didn't know at the time that's actually a bargain. People are blowing $250,000 on these things, and they get annulled 2 weeks later. What a waste that is. But anyway, we converted the wedding expense to a down payment on a house, and I had to sell her 5 times on the same idea because you do have to give your daughter a wedding, I think, but they in fact scaled it down to a beach wedding with a pastor and one witness, so it probably didn't cost them $500. But I told them, I said, look, you can either get a box full of pictures that you will never ever look at again after you blow through this 20 to 50 grand, or you can envision your kids playing out in the backyard and the joy that they have, and you could do one or the other, but you're not going to do both. It's not going to happen. So take your pick.
It's about choices, Howard, and to that point, a lot of the youth have bad financial habits. Okay. You talked about maybe getting into a place for $18,000. If you're renting a 3 or 4 bedroom house here in the Northeast, it's very likely you're paying $3,500, maybe $4,000. By the time you pay the rental commission, the security deposit, the first month's rent, you're probably in the $12,000 to $15,000 range. And then if you bought a house, you skip your first month's rent payment per se, because if you buy a house on January 1st, your first payment isn't due until March 1st. And if we're not having these conversations, then people don't know this, right? It's the best kept secret. Okay. And I'm always surprised by how many even industry professionals haven't really thought that through, right? So if you buy a house on January 1st versus you move into a new place, if you rent on January 1st, when's your first rent payment due? February 1st. If you bought a house, your first rent payment isn't due until March. Okay. If we all don't know that, then we need to just remind ourselves of that. That needs to be part of our dialogue. So I am getting off the Paris challenge. I have a vision of standing on top of the Eiffel Tower, having a celebration, hopefully with 100 of your peers. I fret that it might only be 50, but I'm going to work my damnedest to make sure that I bring 100 people to Paris and we take some wonderful photos from the top of the Eiffel Tower. Howard, rain or no rain, we're doing it. And it's going to be it's honestly, it's going to be the best. And it's not about that experience. That experience will just symbolize what we've accomplished, right? The fact that we've, added 800 new families into homes during the period of a year. Okay. And that's gotta statistically move the average down a little bit, at least in our own markets, or at least in the markets where the people who know us, right? The people who know us, maybe everybody in our database might be moved down to an average of 33, which to me is huge. And if everybody did it, it would have a major impact. So
One other thought, Rob. Not all these kids live in our hometown. They're scattered all over. They're scattered all over the country. And I don't know if you know it, but you've got about a 95% chance that no matter where that child is currently located, there's a RE/MAX office within 5 miles that can help them. So when the client says, "Well, I got a child in Berkeley or whatever, and I have no idea how I could ever do this," great. I have an associate in Berkeley that can help them, and I'll personally interview them, and I'll personally help walk you through this if you have a true interest.
another great point. Thank you. Now I'm going to have to speed through our session today, which will be fun. How to become a top 5% agent. Okay. And for those of you who are already a top 5%, this can be a top 1% or 0.5%. But I'm going to talk about the top 5% of the agents have their week planned out and prioritize the activities that make them successful. Okay, it's not random. And the random agent is depending on the market to bail them out. The intentional agent knows that if they do the right activities, the results will always come, right? And for me, when the market changes, it creates different opportunities for us, right? It's called separation season because when the market was great, did you need a lot of skills to sell a house in 2021? Probably not, right? You just put a sign in the ground and you had multiple offers. So in reality, yeah, we might be able to move the needle higher, but basically everybody was successful. Prices probably exceeded what they had hoped for. And the skill or the margin to be successful was very, very low. Today, it's more discernible. You need to be more intentional with the way that you do your things. The three forces that derail the 95% that want to be in the top 5 are lack of daily operational systems, right? Lack of discipline, inconsistent business generation, lead generation, and also follow-up. And then number 3 is no clear plan or no measuring of the activities that you're doing. Okay, those are the 3 main reasons why the 95% of agents make the other 5% possible, right? I think the top 5% of agents.
Calling the Colorado Department of Public Works. We are unable to get to the phone right now. Please leave your name, number, and a brief description of the reason you're calling, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible.
Rob,
Yep, I did. I muted everybody.
can you make me
So,
co-host and I will help you?
okay. Okay, you're now my co-host, Adona. You have a lot of responsibility now.
Okay.
So the top 5% of the industry is making $241,000 on average across the country. Okay. The bottom 50%, not the bottom 5%, but the bottom 50% is about 38,000. Okay. So, and the bottom 5% is 0. Okay. Probably the bottom 30% is 0, but the top 5% is $241,000 of income. Okay. And probably every one of our markets, the top 5% is higher because we have a much higher average sales price, but that's a national statistic. The traits of top producers, relentless consistency in daily activities. They follow an operating schedule. they protect their lead generation time. Okay. A lot of us, we go on and we look at email, we get a phone call, we get distracted, shiny object syndrome. Oh, maybe I'll do this. And next thing you know, the most valuable time is already away from us. Okay. They track their activities every day. They treat real estate like a business, not a hobby. They treat it like a business. Okay. And we talked a few sessions back about like what's your hourly rate. And does anybody want to volunteer? Does anybody know what their hourly rate is based upon what they're going to do in 2025? Want to volunteer? Nobody. I'm gonna call on Jen in the Villages. You know what your hourly rate is? You gotta
No,
unmute
but I'm
yourself.
on ChatGPT right now trying to figure it out. I don't know. I've never tracked it. I've been a horrible, I gotta say, I've been horrible at business planning and managing and all the things that you're saying now. I am geared for this next year to get more hyper focused on being more diligent about it because I have not really had anyone help me with this or even know where to start. So
So
I'm
Jennifer,
definitely feel
what's
like
the
I'm
volume?
lacking.
Do you know approximately how many millions of dollars you'll have sold in 2025 when it ends?
Right now, I will probably have maybe 2 million.
And how many units sold?
Well, one was 1.6 that's closing the end of this month. And the other ones, there's 1, 2, 4. So maybe closer to 3 million.
Okay. So 3 million, probably 90,000, 100,000 of gross income. If you work a 40-hour week, you're making $50 an hour. If you work a 50-hour week, you're making $40 an hour. These are all numbers that are stone cold in my head. If you take normal real estate vacation time or normal vacation time period, your hourly rate goes up. But what most people don't realize, Jennifer, is that there are certain points of time where you're managing 5, 10, 20x that, right? So most people have a 10x factor when they're doing lead generation. And the reason why people don't maintain consistency to it is because there's no immediate gratification, right? Because you can work 1 hour of lead generation, you can get frustrated and then get in the wrong mindset, stop doing that. But if you look at it, if you did 10 hours or 12 hours a week of business building, lead generation, prospecting, okay, that's going to, on average, give you a $500 an hour return. But the problem is you don't know which hour is going to give you 10,000, and there's 11 hours that give you zero, 1 hour that gives you $5,000 or $10,000 worth of a return. And most of us don't have the mindset to continue to do the 11 or 12 hours that it takes to get to that one opportunity that makes all the money. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
And that's what I'm working on is I have right now, I'm building an Excel spreadsheet to keep me focused on how many prospects and how many closings I have to have per month to reach my goal. So I'm really trying very hard I'm not very good at math, I gotta say, it's just horrible. But to be honest, but I'm gonna try and really work on myself this year and next year, getting it more focused.
So, I don't want to put you on the spot, but what would you like to see 2025 or 2026 be for you, Jennifer? Like if things worked out the way you want?
I want to average at least probably 250,000 for the year is my goal for money as far as a number. Right now, my husband's not working and we're down to just me working. So I'm a little more focused this year than I was previous years because I had extra income. But
What's
I
the best
don't.
year you ever had?
Probably I started in 2016. I had my best year probably in, I would say 2020.
And what was that year? Roughly what was that in either millions sold or gross commission, do you recall?
Um, I was working at Vacasa, so I was earning an income and selling real estate. So my average income just with Vacasa was around 60,000. And then my real estate on top of that, I surpassed my husband's salary, which was over in the six figures. It was pretty high.
Okay. So if we can just shift part of the time that you spend, Jennifer, from doing administrative or other activities to the activities that are going to give you the ability to help, homeowners and homeowners and home buyers make a difference, then you can just by instead of spending 3 hours, by spending 12 hours of lead generation prospecting time, you can probably double or triple your income without working an extra hour. I know that sounds crazy, but it's the reality. And if you get pushed where you're out of time, okay, what you do is you figure out what you can outsource. What can you give to somebody else? Because then you become very conscious of activities you're doing that aren't consistent with the income and the amount of families that you're looking to serve in 2026, right?
Like dollars for hours, right? How much are
Right.
you?
So there could be, do you spend administrative time? Do you create flyers and brochures and things of that nature? You can use artificial intelligence. You can use Fiverr. You can outsource things, and you can find a way to do those things for $5 to $15 an hour while you're making $60 an hour, or you're making those hours of prospecting. You might be making $500 per hour.
Right.
Those are the things that we all need to know. And if you're not good at math and you don't love math, you need to have a basic proficiency, okay? Because nobody wants to go to an overweight gym and overweight physical trainer, right? If you go to the gym and you see your trainer, and he's 300 pounds or she's 200 pounds, you might be like, why am I going to this trainer? Like they don't practice what they preach, right?
Right.
So we need to have, I mean, it may not be what we love, but we need to have a basic understanding of what's going to get us where we need to be.
Thank
So,
you.
you're welcome. Follow your schedule. Protect your lead generation time. Track your activities, right? And I think we're all guilty at different levels. Like how much time are we spending doing, these different buckets of activities, right? And should we be doing more in one bucket, less in another? Does inertia just steal our day, right? I'm sure we've all had days where we feel like at the end of the day we've accomplished very little. And we've all had days where at the end of the day we felt like it was amazing, we got so much done. What makes that difference? And how do we get more of the latter amazing days that we got so much done? Okay. And Jennifer, this is treating it like a business, like you're the CEO of your own company, and you're going to tell yourself what you need to do to get the outcome that you want, right? And if there's probably nobody on this call that if you refine your prospecting skills, maybe 2% a month and you get 25, 30% better in the next 12 months, that you can't make $500 an hour doing your prospecting time, right? And you can just move your income up by making, instead of 8 hours a week, you can do it 12 or 16 hours a week. 16 hours a week is 4 hours a day for 4 days. Very manageable. Okay. And that could probably double or triple many of our income. We also need to know what prospecting is, right? Because I see agents when I talk to them, oh yeah, I was prospecting. Well, my opinion of prospecting, my definition and theirs are different. Okay. A lot of times people conflate lead follow-up with prospecting, and I don't believe that they're the same, right? When you're prospecting, you're finding new ways to generate new opportunities. When you're following up with, they came to my open house, call me in a week, call me in a month, and you call them then, that's really not prospecting. That's nurturing. That's nurturing the relationships. think the skill level there is even a little bit lower. The discipline might be similar, but that's just following up on opportunities. And ironically, number 2 is mastery of follow-up and long-term nurture. Okay. In every one of your markets, I've gone to open houses and tried to meet new agents, especially when I'm new in the area. And I intentionally give my correct phone number and my correct email. And you know what percentage of people follow up with a phone call or a text? Anybody want to venture a guess? Now, these are people coming in to an open house, signing in with a correct name and phone number. What percentage do you think actually make a call to a prospective client? And I don't usually say that I'm an agent with RE/MAX. I might, if I get into an in-depth conversation, maybe 10% of the time I mention that. But what percentage of people do you think actually follow up on and lead with a good phone number?
1%.
So I see 10%. Anybody else? I found it to be about 12 to 15% will actually make one call. And it's probably less than 5% that will have a second follow-up. Now, what do you think about, how does that make you feel?
Like you're not doing your job, I guess.
I mean, if you're one of those that you're not doing your job, and when you hear this statistic, what it does is it creates a tremendous opportunity, right? Because, I didn't say I was working with an agent. I gave my correct phone number. I would often say I'm looking to move in the next 90 days because I want to see what the follow-up level is. And it is so pathetically low. Okay. And my suspicion is if you take a look at the 1,100 agents that we have, I hope we're doing much better than that, but I'm sure we're not more than 3 times that. I'll bet you a majority of them don't get a phone call back. Or maybe there's a phone call and they don't answer and we don't try again. Who doesn't answer calls that they don't recognize? Let's be honest. I mean, I'm always answering my phone call and I'm always hitting 9 or 7 to put me on the do not call list if it's a robocall. Because you know what? Probably 1 out of every 25 is a manager or an agent calling saying, hey, do you have somebody good? Do you have an excellent agent in Tucson? And then I'm picking up the phone, I'm making that referral, right? So I have to have 24 spam calls to get to one opportunity. Is it worth it? For me, it is. How about for you?
Well, phones kind of screen your calls. So
I'm sorry?
Now the new phones screen your calls. So it'll start to say if like they left a message, it'll speak out and type out what they're saying. So you can pick it up in the middle of that voicemail. But it'll screen if it's a spam or something on your phone.
But can I just, Jennifer, if I was calling to make a referral to San Diego and I call a random RE/MAX agent and they don't answer, I'm just going to look for the next platinum agent and calling them. So,
Rob,
there would be a referral opportunity lost in my particular case. And I don't think I'm abnormal.
So you pick
Rob,
up
can I add
spam
something?
calls?
I'm sorry?
You pick up calls if they say spam?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I do, and then I hit 7 or 9 because that's usually the put me on your do not call list.
Okay, so maybe they're not a fake call. Maybe it is a real call.
I mean, sometimes I get ones that say potential spam, but it could be a real estate agent that's been making cold calls and they got put on the potential spam list, right?
Oh, okay. Okay.
So Wilson, go ahead.
Yeah,
Lynn.
one thing that we had an experience here where we had a
Come back to
referral.
Lynn.
We were sending it out, I believe it was to Wisconsin or Minnesota, one of those. I called 26 agents, and sent a text afterwards, every single one of them. My voicemail said, I have a referral opportunity for you I'd love to discuss. And my text message said, please call me back as soon as you can. I have a referral opportunity I'd like to discuss. That was this summer. And as of now, I've heard back from those 26 agents. 0 of them have returned my text or phone call. They were all RE/MAX agents, and it took me calling Howard, annoyed that I had somebody on the other line crying because of how horrible of a real estate transaction they had. Couldn't find a RE/MAX agent. Called the broker owner out there, and he said, oh, call my branch manager. And I said, he was one of the 26. Still haven't heard from any single one of them. We called the owner. The owner finally said, okay, I got a team for you. And within 15 minutes, I had them on the phone and had a listing contract signed the next day for $500,000 listing out there. And when the owner and I went back and discussed it, it turned out that that my number came through as spam for a lot of them, and they didn't recognize it, so they didn't answer it. And I said, well, what about the voicemail and text message? Oh, they thought that was a scam. So there's a lot of agents out there that just don't trust the system, but they lost a $500,000 sale because of it.
Yeah, so that's a good point, Wilson. I will get things like, do you want a buyer in your local area? If it looks like it's a spam thing, I won't respond to that text.
Yeah.
So
What surprised me is I made it personal. This is Wilson Troxel with Remax Excalibur in Tucson. I have an incredible opportunity for you with a referral. Please call me back ASAP. That was my text to 26 agents, and I still haven't heard from one of them.
Fantastic.
So
Lynn,
congrats, guy.
I had one 2 weeks ago, and I'm in the office, surrounded by paperwork and stuff, and my phone rang, and I'm like, ringing phone could be money, okay? And I picked it up, and it was a referral agent from a Remax office in New York for his parents, 25% on a $500,000 property. I got them under contract in a week. Okay. And he said that I was the only person that would answer the phone. He kept calling and calling and calling. And that happened actually twice. So it pays to answer your phone. And I removed my block because I guess the new update with the iPhone that they automatically reduce the spam. I removed that because I wasn't getting those type of calls.
And at the beginning of my career, Howard coached me on this, and he said, "What really are you going to lose a $500,000 sale, $1 million sale over the 10 seconds it takes to figure out it's a spam and hang up on them? Are you really are you willing to lose that?"
I'm gonna back Wilson on this in a different way. I think it's more comes down to are we really specific on what our objective is and what we're doing? Open houses, I know one agent who has ever sold an open house in the open house. Open houses are lead generation tools. If you're not following up with those leads, then why are you holding them? When you're answering the phone, we work in an industry where we're talking to people. Whether that's vendors, you create different relationships, you hang up on them because I don't need the business call. Great, I'm not looking for this or social media. Anybody who's on social media who has a private account that is advertising their business is doing it wrong because you want more eyeballs on it. So I think that and I agree with Rob, when you pick up the phone, I had a conversation. It started Christmas Eve. Do you still work in real estate? We all know that that's a scam. And I said, yes, of course. How can I help you? That's my general response. If it goes into the spam, I just ignore it. It said, I got your number from my neighbor. Here's my address. I'm looking to sell in the spring. Can you come over Monday and do an appointment? Had I not responded to that was an opportunity. And most of the time, to pick up the phone, what are you doing? If you see it and you're doing something else, I get it. But if you're not doing anything else, pick up the phone, say hi. If it's scam, sorry, not interested, hang up, move on, or log that call, or take 10 minutes and just learn what it's about, because you never know that system that's out there that you may want to use down the road. But I think that too many of us are, oh, well, we're in the industry where we can ignore more things, where our entire life, Rob, I was thinking about when we were getting ready for this presentation, how to be the top 5%. 74% of people sold less than 5 homes. Well, this should be called how to be the top 1%. The reality is that we work in an industry where if we're not constantly talking to people, vacation to me is I work 10 hours a day, not 18. I go to a casino, I go sit by the pool, I do a little bit of work, but I was on the phone yesterday for Christmas. Somebody called me. And guess what? That's a potential. Now, I'm not saying go away from the family, but you can spend an hour or two and send a quick email or this and that. If you want to be the top, there are agents out there that say we don't really get a quote day off, because we service our clients, and the top 1% will always have that mindset.
If you guys notice the way Jason speaks, that's the way a top 1% speaks. there's different communication styles. We all sound different, but the confidence in his voice, the clarity in his direction of where he's going, this is somebody who wakes up, comes to our office every day, manages a team, and has a clear cut path of what he needs to do to not only get that first 250, but have a goal of whether it's 500 or 750 or $1 million a year in GCI, because he knows exactly what he's doing. So just listen, guys, because we have some amazing people on this call.
He says that I'm actually at home today because I gave my staff the day off, but thank you for that.
It's okay. You're showing up and you're involved and you're dropping nuggets, and that's what we want.
But you could have took the day off too, Jason. So give yourself a little credit. So the difference in the top 5% versus the top 1% versus the top 0.5%. Top 5% puts you around 241,000. The top 1% puts you around 700,000, and the top 0.5% puts you with an average of about 1.7 million. Okay, so it's not linear; it's very dramatic to get into those more exclusive areas, and that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of us at Remax like to network and be around people doing more than us. Glenn Baker loves to challenge himself by going places where it makes him feel insignificant, because he knows that he's going to now be pulled up by the people that he's around. Okay. So anyway, thanks for sharing that. I want to just get through the rest of this, then we'll wrap up with a little more conversation. You need to know what your lead pillars are. If I come by and I say, what are your top 3 lead pillars? What are your top 3 lead generation sources? Who knows without thinking what those are? And if you don't, then I challenge you to start to think about what those 3 lead sources are. If you are a serious professional looking to be a top 1% or above, you need to be obsessed with tracking your data, right? Because if you're using the same playbook from 2019, does it work today? Probably not at the same level. Things change quite a bit. And if you're not measuring what's working, you might be spending money on things that aren't giving you a return on investment that meets your standard. Communication skills, preferences, and improving the standard that you apply to your team, incredibly important, right? Respond quickly, control the process, set clear expectations, deliver certainty in an uncertain market, right? I don't know where it falls within like the most stressful things in life, but usually buying a house is somewhere, there's public speaking is usually the most feared activity. Divorce and death is usually number 2 and 3, and number 4 is often buying a house in terms of stress. And for me, that doesn't need to be, right? Because we can share with the prospect, what the process is for having a satisfactory outcome for that whole process, right? And, Jason, if I list your house, I know with certainty what it takes to get it sold, right? I'm not going to play guesswork. I'm not going to allow you to be stressed out over the process. If does anybody truly wish this business was easier? Let's be honest. Who wishes it was easier? Come on, you can raise your hand.
I wish there were some things that were easier, but if the easier it gets, the more people are in it, and if it's not for everybody.
Right, but the easier it gets, Jason, the less money you're going to make, right?
Oh, sure.
Because other people can do it. So for me, I don't wish it was easier. I just wish I was better, right? Because if it's what's easy doesn't earn much money, does it? Right? And if it was super easy, they wouldn't need us, right?
Sure.
They could do it on their own. So please stop wishing it was easy or easier, and just focus on being a little bit better, right? So that you are an irresistible, irreplaceable piece of the process, a piece of the transaction. All the things that we do, objection handling, negotiating, market knowledge, communication skills, And all of these things require our ability to do the dreaded thing called the script, right? And a script is not a robotic process. A script is kind of like a guideline on how you get to where you need to be, right? When somebody says X, you don't want to think about how you're going to respond. You want to know exactly how you're going to respond to that before you start to open your mouth and talk about it, right? Emotional resilience and market immunity. Top agents, you know, if your plan for 2026 starts with, you know, Kathy, depending upon the market, I hope to do this, then you're already challenged, right? Because the market doesn't matter, right? If your goal is, if you're looking to join me in Paris and you're hoping that the market gives you the lift to get you there, I mean, that's pretty sad, right? Because the market really has nothing. If the rates go up to 8%, okay, then I'm going to find a way to show people how there's going to be more inventory available to them. And then when the rates do eventually come down, they're going to benefit, right? Because that's just the way I communicate. That's part of my DNA. That's what I believe. When deals fall apart, you know, the best professional that I've ever seen, they're not swayed by a deal or two that falls apart. They know that over the period of a year, if I'm doing 40 transactions, 3 of them are going to fall apart. So if all 3 fall apart in January, I'm like, all right, the rest of the year is going to be clear sailing for me. And maybe there's 4 that fall apart this year, but I'm not going to get emotionally derailed by individual things that happen. Some things happen, you know, I talk about 2% of what happens beyond our control, right? That could be somebody losing a job in the process of buying a house. Whatever it is, they're beyond our control. And it doesn't bother me because I know there's nothing I could have done. Rate changes, inventory shifts, difficult clients, temporary set, like these things don't even come into play with the top 1%, the top 0.5%. Most of the top 5%ers aren't fazed by that. Okay. And on the link that I sent out, you have copies of these charts here, which you might want to take a look at. Time allocation of the 95% of people who aren't in the top 5%. Okay. You know where they spend the majority of their time? Anybody want to guess? Administrative functions, right? Putting the paperwork together, doing this, doing that. They spend 2% on skill building, 13% on reactive work, 7.5% on inconsistent lead generation, and 7.5% on unstructured marketing. I didn't make this up. This is what these studies from the National Association and some of the coaching industries have done. The productive people spend 30% of their time on business building, lead generation. They spend 22% of time actually meeting with clients. They spend 14% of their time on marketing, skills training, and lead nurturing, and only 27% of their time on administrative functions. And then there's a little chart I put there comparing the top 5% versus the rest of the industry. And it's pretty telling. Okay. It's not random. You know, I know like my parents were employee mentality, right? And they were like, go to college, get a steady job, don't do anything in sales because that's risky, right? And it's actually the exact opposite, right? Because a lot of people that went into corporate world, they build up to a high salary level, and you know what happens? They decide I'm going to replace him or her with 3 people out of college that cost, you know, a third the cost, right? So the real stability, the real power is your ability to consistently generate results by helping people and making a better living every year. Okay. If you're in the business for 20 years now, and next year will be your 21st year, you should be better than you were last year, right? Because you have an extra year of experience, you have an extra year of learning, an extra year that you can contribute to the market, right? So these are all things that I just want everybody to know that, home buyers are not victims of circumstance. They're not, oh, Howard, these poor people, they have student loans and home prices have gone up so much they can't afford it. Have you seen how much income some of these young folks are making when they start, right? Versus when maybe you started your career? Everything is relative. Okay. If they stop, buying, leasing cars and spending money on, DoorDash and this and everything else, they might be able to buy a house, but it requires a intent. Okay. And then it requires an allocation of where they're going to spend their time and how they're going to spend their money. Right. Because I would say that 95% of these quote unquote victims, okay, if they were convinced that they wanted to do something, they wanted to buy a property because it served them well, they might take a side job, they might work a little extra overtime. Okay, they can all make some choices. And to Howard's point, they might even have a conversation with their parents saying, hey, I'm thinking about buying a property. What do you think about it, right? Most adults in the room would probably say that's a great idea, right? And that opens the conversation. But I would make a guess that a lot of the people that, get the down payment handed to them are probably less committed to making the payments and being responsible homeowners than the people who actually made the sacrifice and earned the opportunity to enter home ownership. Would you agree with that? Right? Because it's easier to walk away from somebody else's money than to walk away from your own blood, sweat, and tears, right?
Yeah. Hey, Rob.
Yeah.
Here's a final tangent to this conversation that I started with, and thank you all for sharing your time and listening to me rant. But that same daughter who has spent the last 38 years making bad decisions, they've now decided to move. They're going to move before the end of the year to a small town in Colorado. They now own their first rental property. The home that they bought has a small positive cash flow. The tenant is moving in 5 days after they leave. They still have tax deductions on that home. It's a rental property that'll stay rented. They're acquiring equity. They're acquiring equity and net worth. And I'm telling you, this girl hasn't balanced a checkbook in 38 years. She's physically irresponsible, but she's made a good choice in buying a home, and their net worth is going to increase in spite of her bad decisions. So this conversation that you can have with parents and grandparents, how you couch it, it's one of these have you heard, did you know, have you seen, have you tried type of conversations when you're talking to your past clients. But I would sure encourage you to use it and develop a pattern of using it this next year.
Right. And Howard, everybody on this call, has some super talents and everybody has some weaknesses. And we just need to look at, those weaknesses instead of weaknesses as opportunities for growth, right? And figure out how can we continue to move forward even when, we're having a lazy day or we don't feel like doing it, right? And, that North Star can be, helping people for most of, I find that most people, Howard, they get into the business because they love people and they love houses, that they're not getting in it because they're, serial entrepreneurs with, sophisticated business plans on how to cut this expense and increase here. They do it because they love it. They do it because they like to help people, right? I think most of us probably do this more so because we like to help people than even we love real estate. And if you want to help people, then we need to figure out how can we be more efficient so that we can help more people. And then when we help more people, it in return helps ourselves. Crazy how that works. Okay. So you need to be intentional and you need to be very protective of how you spend your time. You need to be very intentional in the way that you communicate with people because sometimes people won't respond to what you say because you don't have the right process, right? And, everything goes back to, asking better questions, right? And people don't argue with their own words, right? So if you can find a strategy to ask your clients better questions, and, this is for buyers, sellers, renters, landlords, everybody, asking them better questions that can drive them to the right conclusion will make you the hero every day. Okay. And you will not have to argue with people over what happens. Okay. So I'm going to leave you with that. We will be on January 2nd. We're not taking that day off either. You can, but I'm here. And the deadline, if you haven't registered for the Paris Challenge, the Keys at 33, is Friday. I don't think we're going to hit the 100 before then. We're probably in the 40s now. So I hope to see you join us there and join me on top of the Eiffel Tower. Anybody have any last things to say? All right, have a great weekend. And for those of us in the Northeast, send all those referrals to Arizona, Texas, and Florida.
Absolutely.
When they're shoveling, they come back in. Send them out.
I'm ready.
And if you guys have any questions of who to reach out to for what market, you can always reach out to me. Referrals are my big thing, so I'm always a call away. Have a good
Thank
weekend.
you. Thanks, David.
Happy
Bye, everybody.
holidays.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
weekend.
Bye
Happy
now.
holidays.
Have a new year.